That's our Veterans Peer Specialist Program, and that's been a very valuable
How
program.
many do we have working up there?
4.
4, I thought it was like 4.
Yeah.
So they're all 4 positions?
They're
of
part-time,
their-
not benefited, yeah.
Yeah, all doing a great job.
Contract employees.
Well, they're actually
No, they're
temporary hires.
temporary.
Temporary hires,
We're just
right.
keeping them under that 960 hours.
Right,
And they're retired, so they're fine with that.
Yeah.
right. We just hope we can continue to get grant funding next year for the program.
And that grant's been a pain in the neck.
It has. Working with Veterans Affairs has not been an easy task. Although the contract finally got approved this year. It got approved on time this year, so we should be getting money coming in.
Well, thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions of the?
I just wanted to add a comment about public guardian. There was some conversation earlier in the year about the $163,000 general fund that goes to the public guardian budget. And you asked us to take a look at it, and I did, and we just haven't been back because there have been other things going on. Your first question was, do we have to have a public guardian? Well, no, it's not required by law, but all 58 counties have one because the job they do is quite unique. And it's the kind of job nobody else wants to really mess with. You are taking on responsibility for either a person's trust, a person's estate, or the person themselves, or all of those. And there's a lot of legal aspects, there's a lot of, you can get into arguments with the family, you can have the public calling, there's risks, there's all sorts of details that go into this very strange job. And then, for instance, if they get the estate of a person who's now in long-term care, they're responsible for managing that person. Well, they also have to manage the estate, which means sell the house, they've got to clean it out, and often these people are hoarders, and they have to go through all the trouble to get the mess cleaned up and sell everything, or if there's nothing left to sell, haul it to the dump. I mean, it's a very unique sort of a job. But we're not being negligent of that $163,000 general fund contribution. Just this year, we have begun time surveying to Ma, and I can't believe this after more than 30 years in the business and working my way into management, so I would never have to do a time study. I'm time studying again. Because I can draw down federal dollars because we're spending money on health activities that the federal government would have matched for the state if the state was paying me. But the state's not, so we're allowed to claim that match because we're paying it. And it's coming out of realignment and other pots, but it's good. In addition, the public guardian is also time studying to MA. This is the medical administrative activities, so they'll be able to draw down some federal match dollars there. We also have, we don't expect a check for that until late in 2015, but that is looking better for next year. And the other possibility we have is the intergovernmental transfer arrangements that we have with Partnership Health, and that's where, again, it's a matching thing. Partnership Health asks us to claim our certified public expenditures, send a check to the state claims it from the feds, sends it back to Partnership sends it to us. So we get our money back, plus we get the money that matches it, so that's another good opportunity. And we have to submit a plan to Partnership, and our plan has always been to use some of that funding to help offset the cost in public guardian, because a lot of what she does is medical activities and health activities. And then we also have talked to Bob Burns, and I've got a lot of work to do on this one. He's interested in giving up the public administrator portion of his job title and duties, and we are willing to take that on in public guardian because she's been doing it for her clients already. And Bob's staff has just been too busy to really work on that project. And so we are willing to take that on, and we think that can generate not big pots of money, but some money to help offset the cost of public guardian.
So, what would your realistic, what do you think that it's possible to get the general fund, right now, like you said, the general fund needs to fund at about $163,000?
That's been pretty steady because that's based on our predicted, we can predict a lot of things. And Monica every year brings in about $37,000 in fees, some other things she does. So we've been pretty stable there. The MA is new, the intergovernmental transfer, the IGT is new. I have no idea how much that might be, and I have no idea how much we might be able to generate in public administrator, and that is going to vary from year to year, depending on who dies and leaves an estate that no one else is entitled to.
So, but I mean, realistically, do you think that number could get down to like $100,000?
Oh, in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't wanna promise that for 14, 15, but I think in a couple of years we could probably do that.
So, so say if we, let's just say hypothetically, a county doesn't have the public guardian. So who handles selling? I mean, somebody would handle it, who, just the state or if they don't have any family?
It would
they
get
just-
farmed out across a few
Probate,
organizations. Behavioral health would probably get responsibility for the ones who end up in mental health hospitals. I have no idea who might end up with the ones who just need to go into long-term care because of physical health. County council would end up with all the legal activities, and she can tell you how much time Monica spends. Monica really, she is an expert in what she does at the paraprofessional level, and in fact, when it comes to elder and conservatorship laws, Monica knows her stuff. There are attorneys in town who call Monica and ask questions. That's how good she is. And all that work would get passed over to county council, so they probably have to hire someone to take care of that, or contract with someone to take care of that. It's just such a weird little thing, and if you can get the one little group that'll take care of it, you wanna leave it there.
And then I'll just finish it. But I think it's, for the most part, we're on our way to mission accomplished, because during the budget, I know we started talking about reducing costs, and, we mentioned juvenile hall, public guardian, and everybody, started freaking out. But, the reason for that was to try and, limit the expenditure, and I think, it's only been a couple of months, and had we not mentioned it, and had we not stressed the importance, perhaps, we wouldn't be here. Now we're looking at, a tri-county agreement with the juvenile hall. I mean, you say it's a very good possibility within 2 years, the $163,000 drawdown off general fund to support public guardian would be under 100. So I think that's what the board was looking to do, not just squash programs and eliminate services, but just try and find a way to lessen the burden on the tax base. And I thank you for, for your efforts, and it's just, that's what we need to do, is just try and be creative and.
Well, and we've wanted to do MA for a while,
Yeah.
but timing is everything, and
Like
And
about
when
10
Les Hall came back-
years ago.
when Les Hall came back to Plymouth County, he's a regional expert in MA, and we have contracted with him to help us manage it, because you can get in serious trouble with MA if you're not careful. And so he came back, the timing was good on that. IGT, the intergovernmental transfer, we couldn't do until we went to managed care. That happened just this year. Timing was good on that. And we've been tossing around the public administrator thing for a couple of years with Bob and.
Supervisor Hammond.
And in the sales of these properties, Melody, do we run into a lot of litigation? Do you have families that protested and sue? I don't have any idea.
Some,
Yeah,
and they don't sue the
because that's a hidden cost.
county,
itself.
it's, you go into court, and, because everything she does is ordered, it's confirmed and ordered by the court.
Yeah,
You can't do anything until the court does it, so they're not suing the county, they're just suing for whatever they want.
Yeah, she's an agent of the court, so
Oh,
if there's a
okay.
dispute,
Okay,
if
okay.
the judge has to
Okay,
resolve that and either
okay.
make her do something different or validate what she does, so the
Okay.
county's
And
not
that's
really
the other
involved.
risk, if you got rid of the program, is
That's
the
what-
judge
that was
would
what I was
decide,
getting at,
the
though.
judge would decide, well, you take care of it,
yeah,
and whether you have any money or not.
yeah.
The other point I
That's
want to
what
make is that, as a rule, we don't ask for general fund unless we have a need for it. So when we go into this 14-15 fiscal year, any money we generate from MA or IGT or public administrator, we're only going to ask for whatever the difference is between what we had what we asked for in general fund and what we actually generated in other revenues. So you could end up the year with a nice little pot, or maybe not. Can't make any promises.
Well, I think if we do that, Mr. Chairman, we need to approach it like we do with the Pilton money. Don't be spending the money until it arrives. So in other words, there'll be a lag behind, so whatever you collect from MA, from let's say this year, okay, becomes the basis for next year. So if you collected $75,000 and your general fund appropriation is $164,000, then with that money in hand, we use that to fund 75,000 of that 164,000 for that next budget. So then next year, if Ma turns out to be only 30,000, then you're not sitting there trying to figure out how to scramble and make up that money. So I think,
And I think that's a great way to do it. It would be up to you guys to approve a budget that had a request for 164,000 in 14-15.
oh, yeah.
Knowing that whatever revenues we
But how-
generate in
but-
14-15
but
would be
how-
applied
Yeah,
to
but how we
15-16.
fund that is our business. So if we have the MAW funds available, and that takes precedent over using a general fund
Right.
dollar. But your operating
Mhm.
program is there, so you don't put yourself in a bind where you did like some of that South County stuff, Tom, where, you know, the staff came in and said, you know, we need, $110,000 to operate this program, and then generate 30, and then come in and ask for, you know, at the 11th hour, we need $70,000, and do that year after year, and build up that kind of I mean, if we were looking at it from the perspective, I mean, if they only had 30,000 in revenue, then you structure the program to operate at 30,000 and not be paying staff and doing a bunch of stuff, knowing full well that they could, you know, back channel, because the money you spent, you gotta shift the funds over to cover those expenditures. And that's what we don't wanna do with a program like that. Because Ma, at least in the early days, I mean, you're gonna find, there are gonna be audit exceptions, you're gonna be asked to pay money back. See, that comes out of that Ma pot as a, like, you would treat it like you do with PILT. That would be my encouragement.
Supervisor Aldo?
Is there any way that with all these grants like the mall, like Jim was talking about, is there any opportunity for you to squirrel some of that stuff away to hold it over till the next year or to go to other departments, or once you get it, you have to spend it? And
MA requires you to spend it on health and Medi-Cal related activities. IGT, your plan for expenditure has to be approved by the Partnership Health, and again, it would have to be spent on something
But
to get
There's
clients
no
and
real
health
way to hold it
activities.
over till the
no,
next year.
but the way you do that is by not spending the general fund dollar because you're gonna use the MA dollar. That frees up the general fund dollar to then be allocated if you want to another purpose. You won't be able to use the MA money for those other purposes, but if that money comes in, it frees up what would otherwise be a general fund contribution to that program that could be utilized for something else, if necessary. So that you free up your dollars, they won't let you mess with their dollars.
Well,
Keep
thank
it
you.
in my pocket.
Is there any more questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Need to.
What's the pleasure of the board? This requires a four-fifth vote.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the social services, public health, mental health, alcohol and drug and veteran service revised budget allocations as recommended by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you please pull the board?
Supervisor Chapman. Supervisor Alba.
Aye.
Supervisor Pyle. Supervisor Hammond.
Aye.
Supervisor Lassen.
Right. Motion passes unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, let's see, why don't we move down to H7 and take up the contract for special legal services with Andrew Howard.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the ongoing services that we had. Tracy Weaver do several years ago, and then Jordan Funk took care of it last year for us. He's become the DA in Modoc, and Andrew Hott is a semi-retired attorney that moved up here after 30 years practicing Kern. He's helping the courts part-time.
He lives here?
And he lives here. And he's actually done litigation on contracts. He has a nice depth of knowledge, so just continuing with the service of having a contract review. I ask that you approve the chairman of the board to sign that contract.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the contract.
I second it.
Does any members of the audience wish to speak on the matter before we act on that note? Okay. If It's been moved and seconded, if there's no further discussion. Aaron?
Yeah. Ray, what's his, background like in the law thing? I mean, if he's gonna sign the contract or get ready to go through another hurdle of things, he can be able to pick up a mistake if a mistake is made by the surveyor,
No,
so that somebody else doesn't lose their head?
no, because as the form says, it's as to form. It's not to the substantive information that the departments provide to the contract. That would take a team of attorneys I can't even guesstimate how many people it would take, but that is not normal throughout the state. For your attorney who's doing as to form, it's as to the form of the contract, not the substantive information that's provided.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any further questions? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, so that passes unanimous, thank you. Okay, let's take up H5, that's committee, and the subject is the Lassen County's 150th anniversary committee.
Mr. Chairman, at the request of the board, I placed this item and H6 are very similar in this regard. I placed them on the agenda for the board to be able to appoint committees for those respective efforts. And they are agendized so that you could establish the committee and task force today if you'd like to, or if the board feels it would be more appropriate to bring it back in the form of a resolution, I'd be happy to do that next week, but I just placed it on the agenda to be able to do it either way.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is at my request from last week's meeting, and I appreciate Mr. Egan placing both these items on there because I think it's long overdue that we try to do something in this area, these two areas. So I would be in favor of establishing the committee today, but as to making appointments and filling that out, that will probably take action by the board over the next couple meetings as we reach out to community partners and others who would be of interest in terms of participating and being involved with this. To just kind of the summary, you know, April 1st is the date the legislature, 150 years ago, in 1864, created Lassen County. That's a singular act, and obviously that's kind of the beginning, in my opinion, of a series of activities that took place that brought about county government as we know it today. So to me, the celebration isn't just doing something one day, oh yeah, they got created, April Fools, move on, and that's the end of it. I think throughout the balance of the year, I think we should take note of what the founding fathers of the county had to deal with in order to bring the county into existence. It's a teachable moment that I think that would be beneficial to the young people in our schools. So I think the school should be involved, and not just here in the Susanville area. I think this needs to be, we need to have activities and look at activities county-wide that brought us into what is now Lassen County. As a result of the action that the legislature took on that day, the governor appointed 3 commissioners who met on, and they were required to meet on April 11th, and at that point they had the task of establishing the boundaries for voting precincts and stuff. There were some that were in existence because of either Plymouth County, California, or Root County, Nevada, that claimed similar jurisdictions over the previous 10 years after Isaac Root had arrived here in the valley. They held, based on the act, required an election be held on the first Monday in May that year, which was May 2nd. And so it was at that point in time that 3 county supervisors were elected. A whole host of county offices like sheriff and clerk and treasurer and those kind of positions were filled. Those commissioners met as required by statute on the 12th of May that year to certify the results. It was also on that same election ballot was designating where a county seat would be located, and Susanville was the one that prevailed in that election on May 2nd, so they had to ratify and canvass the votes. They swore in the 3 people who were elected to be supervisors for the first board. They then set up their first meeting by law was set to be in the first, I think, Monday in June, I believe it was June 6th. Only 1 board member was present. They kind of continued business until June 9th, when the second of the three supervisors arrived and was able to convene, but he got in late in the day, so their actual first board meeting took place on June 10th, 1864, which, if you look at our calendar of the meeting, our first meeting in June happens to be June 10th, which is 150 years to the day. So I think, organizing commemorative events that surround those kind of deals, they, at that point, held sessions. The third board member arrived on June 14th, and it was in the following week is when, June 18th, when they determined that they needed to have a place for a jail, so they advertised, well, actually at the June 11th meeting, they advertised for, a location that maybe the county could buy. They set a tax rate raised. At that time, the taxes that they were generating, property taxes, based on the assessments, was about $16,000 for the whole year. But with that money, they were going to buy some property and begin establishing, putting up buildings. And I'm giving you this information directly out of Fairfield's pioneer history, which delineates all these activities. But anyway, it was Isaac Root that stepped forward and said, instead of buying, here's a piece of land, which is where the courthouse sits today. He did that on June 18th. They then went ahead and advertised for the building of the first building. They asked for it in August to have those bids come in. They had several bids. They were awarded, and they actually got the first jail built by October that year. So it shows you the time frames that are then. Now, we've been talking about getting some new board chambers. It's about 5 months from now would be June 5th. And I think based on the agenda item we have in a few minutes or later this afternoon, where we do the touring, maybe in 5 months we could do what these guys did in 3 months in terms of getting a jail built. Things of that event. Maybe we could hold our first meeting in this new board chambers on June 10th.
That would be the goal.
That would be a nice goal, but I think this committee, and I would propose that we, the sheriff's been here and has talked about what he's doing to commemorate the 150th anniversary of his office. Jim Byers was elected sheriff on that election on May 2nd, took over as on May 12th and became the first sheriff of Lassen County. You got the Historical Society. Tony Jones is sitting in the back of the room. I know they're itching to do a number of things. You've got the Chamber of Commerce. The fair is already last week by designating their theme for this year. They're very interested in being involved in promoting the 150th anniversary. You've got the city is an entity. You've got our schools. The County Superintendent Schools Office puts on the Isaac Root or the third grade history day, which focuses on the history of the county. I think it would be appropriate to get them involved and maybe incorporate some of this early history to kind of bring it alive for the community. And of course, there are a lot of other organizations like Seroptimus and Rotary and Kiwanis and you name it that are floating out there that I think each of them could be prevailed upon if they would like to incorporate that in their activities. And that's what this committee would do, basically starting now until December 31st this year, that we make it something that we can remember. In 1964, on the 100th anniversary, that there's actually a book published, a little pamphlet booklet published by the newspaper that showed all kinds of activities that they did throughout the year, and I think it's a matter of maybe building upon and recreating some of that. Big Valley Days takes place in June. Maybe that would be something, even though Big Valley probably feels like they were part of Shasta County and not part of this new county being formed. But I think those are the things that I think would be really helpful if we could achieve that. So to me, I'd like to see a committee established, and I would move that we do that today and that we have on next week's agenda beginning making appointments to people who would be willing to serve and continue to do that process over the next few weeks.
Okay. So we have a motion.
So moved, but also we're at noon, and
Yeah.
Ms. Greta
After
requested.
Yeah. She's got a meeting in 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah. So, so we'll take up this item and then we're gonna have to
Recess anyway.
So, on this item here, we have a motion on the floor to establish the,
I'll second that.
The committee?
Yeah, committee.
Who's your name?
Well, we are
Jim.
designating today, that will be done at next week's meeting. Begin next week's meeting, filling out people to serve on.
Is there anyone that, from the audience?
So I'll need applications tomorrow, the latest
Well-
Thursday morning. If we're gonna put it on the agenda for that.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
can fax them.
And then we could, you
Huh?
know,
What's that?
Just want you to be chairman.
Well, you can appoint me to be chairman of one, and then we can work on bringing people in as we can get their applications and get the board to do that.
That one didn't get subscribed.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that.
Did you make a motion to?
let's.
Well, the motion is to establish the committee, and then you can
Okay.
take an action after that.
Does anybody have anything to say on this before we bring it to a vote? Okay, so there was a motion and a second, so all those in favor of forming the committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, so further to that, you wanted to
You can
make,
take it, we'll do that.
you wanted to make
We can do that.
Well, I was gonna say, let's do it real quick, like, and
Okay,
take
well-
up the next item, and then we can, what we can do is reconvene at maybe a set time at Fruit Street for the last agenda item.
Okay, so with that, to follow up with Jim, so that I would put Jim, I'm going to put Jim as the chairman of the setup committee so that he can work on the legalities with the CEO and other board members to get the, and Susan to get everything working for him.
And that's still on the first committee, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All righty, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Risk of, you know, pushing to get something done, that's what happens. I have no problem.
Chair votes
On
aye.
this, on the next item, which will be even shorter, we can be shorter, you know, in terms of getting courthouse square revitalized, one of the things I've learned is instead of having committees that go on and on and on, establishing a task force like we did with the Highway 36 county-owned task force, you know, and give it a focus and a time certain. I'd like to see us establish the courthouse square revitalization task force that would be made up of one board member, 3 appointed department staff members, and 3 public members at large, and give them the task to work on proposals, ideas, and alternatives that they would have to report back to this board no later than December 31st, 2015, for plans for how we can maybe better utilize courthouse square for future generations in terms of providing public services. And I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any comments from the audience? Okay, if there's no further discussion from the board, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I would recommend that we place that on next week's agenda in terms of how we, you know, fill out those particular slots.
Chair votes aye, so that passes. So with that, the items of business we still need to do is need to finish up the closed session. And we need to do our tour.
Let's
So
do the
what's the
tour
pleasure of the
first.
board? Do the tour and then come back here to finish closed session.
Yeah, or could we do the closed session in the conference room over, since we're gonna be over
Well,
that other
we've
building?
agendized this
Yeah.
location.
Okay, that's no problem.
And then there's one other item on there, just my report. I do have a couple things, but maybe I could do that before.
Prior to going into closed session.
Yeah, so we'll recess and then we'll meet at
Courthouse, at the courthouse annex at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
And then come back here to finish up.
Yeah.
Open session and close it up.
Okay, so we'll